Oklahoma Sooners general manager Jim Nagy has a bold idea for the future of Oklahoma Sooners non-conference play.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com. He's Jay Smith of Unfair Sports. You can check out his work covering the Oklahoma Sooners and all of college football over there. I'm John Williams. You can read my work covering Sooners, football, and more over at SoonersWire.com. And Jim Nagy had a night out with Naggie in Oklahoma City, hosted by the boys from the Oklahoma Breakdown, Gabe Eichert and Teddy Lehman, last week, and was asked about the future of non-conference play for the Oklahoma Sooners, Jay.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was wondering what would he want to do when it comes to that. And, granted, I don't think that Jim Nagy really has anything to do with the decision-making when it comes to actual non-conference play, but he did respond to it. He had things to say, and he was like, he wants to play Nebraska and Oklahoma State every year. Thought that was pretty intriguing that he went that direction, and it obviously shows his deep-rooted understanding of Oklahoma football. And I think to me, that's probably the thing I appreciated the most, the fact that he knows what the heck is going on around here. He understands the rivalry between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. He understands the rivalry and the missed rivalry between Oklahoma and Nebraska. Because, heck, we're here right now because Oklahoma wanted to play Nebraska at night. That's all we wanted. But here we are. But I do like the fact that Nagy understands the lore and the whole story and history of the Oklahoma Sooners by making that statement.
It's a couple of teams that need to be on the schedule. If it's not every year, it's every other year or regularly. You got to have these two programs on the schedule. I know we talked about Oklahoma State last week, and some fans are dismissive. They don't really care to have Oklahoma State back on the schedule. Oklahoma State, for the most part, doesn't really care to have Oklahoma back on the schedule. They don't want to deal with that L year after year. But this is one of those games that it matters regionally. You had the coaches in the ACC and the Big 12 talking about how the backyard brawl between Pitt and West Virginia is a game that matters. It's a regional rivalry that matters between West Virginia and Pitt. It's important. Clemson and South Carolina, two different conferences. They play every single year. Florida State, Florida, Miami, they play regularly. And I'm one of those matchups hasn't necessarily been every year, but what I think Florida State has been every year forever, if I'm not mistaken. So these non-conference matchups can happen every single year, even if you're not in the same conference. Yes, does it add to your strength of schedule? It does.
Yep.
But if you're Oklahoma and you think of yourself the way that most Oklahoma fans think of themselves, you shouldn't be concerned with having Nebraska or Oklahoma State on your schedule every single year.
No, you shouldn't. And I think that would be fun to get back and forth and go back to some old Big 8, Big 10, Big 8 and Big 12 years of Oklahoma and Nebraska battling it out. That would be fun. And Nebraska's a large enough, as big of a stadium as they are and how great of a fan base they have. That'd be awesome to get back up there to Lincoln on a regular basis playing some games. Would it benefit Oklahoma that much? To be absolutely honest, no. I don't think it'll be that big of a benefit overall, mainly because you're recruiting some players out of Nebraska, but you ain't recruiting that many players out of the state of Nebraska. That state hasn't really been producing a lot of the top tier talent. I think really ever, if you really think about it, back in the day when Nebraska was at its peak, they spent a lot of times with gray shirts and JUCO guys. So that made more sense there, but today you're not getting much out of it. Everybody makes the joke you're going to turn to next Nebraska because Nebraska became 100% irrelevant as soon as they went to the Big Ten. And Granted, it was because, recruiting out there is a little tough. Texas is a lot easier to get to Nebraska when you're playing in Texas, 2 games a year, just about guaranteed. So Nebraska has their own quote unquote work to do on that, but I don't think it's that big of a benefit. It would just more so be fun and good nostalgia.
And that's what college football is about. It's about the nostalgia, at least for the fan base. For everybody else, the administrators, the networks, it's about the money. But for the fan bases, it's about the nostalgia, at least for a lot of the fans that are in the 30 and up demographic. Maybe and younger don't really care as much about the Oklahoma-Nebraska matchup because they don't remember the 80s. Of course, listen, I don't know the 80s Oklahoma teams, but I do remember Nebraska being a heavy hitter in the Big 12 in the early 2000s. In the late 90s, there was a time where Nebraska was still a very, very good program. I remember some Oklahoma State programs that were really, really good from 2000 to 2010, and then here and there from 2010 to 2020, and how they got our number a couple of times, especially in recent matchups. So I think these kind of matchups were the biggest hit in conference realignment. That took the wind out of the sails of a lot of these historic matchups that we've had for years and years. Okay, Texas will always be number one. That is true. But Nebraska and Oklahoma State are right there. They're right behind OU Texas, and they are fun, historical matchups, and they mean more than Mizzou. Like, listen, we've played Mizzou almost 100 times, but nobody cares about that one near as much as we care about Nebraska or Oklahoma State.
I mean, yeah, I'm trying to think about who even talks about the fact that we played against Missouri that many times.
Missouri does. Like, Missouri cares. We don't care.
They care. Yeah, exactly. They care. We don't. I mean, it's Missouri. They're mid. They've always been. I don't even think I can categorize them as actually mid. It's just Missouri. Yeah, they're just there, right? They've never actually been a true threat overall. Like, yeah, they've had some years where they've had some good years and they've won some games, but they've never turned it into anything. I mean, I think all of their programs have a total of 2 national championships. Like, everything in collegiate sports, that's pretty bad if you really think about it.
Yeah,
kind of should have wanted something. They got enough money for that, but
right.
Stop bagging on Missouri. More so than anything. Nebraska, Oklahoma State were 2 that truly matter. I mean, heck, we destroyed Oklahoma State more often than not, but it's more of the tradition and pageantry and the banter you get because you're in state. That's the thing that you miss the most. I think that was the thing that was missed the most from Texas and Texas A&M not playing each other. It's being able to jab at each other, at the person you work with every day. You got a game coming up, you can jab at each other. You very often are working with somebody that also is a fan of that opposite team. So it's more common than not, especially in Oklahoma. Same thing with Texas and Texas A&M. So you miss that. I mean, Missouri, Kansas, you get that a lot in Kansas City. That's kind of one of those you kind of need to have because you're so close to each other. You're going to probably come across each other type deal. But yeah, I'm really curious to see what the non-con looks like going forward. But first, we've got to even see what the SEC is going to do with the long-term schedule, John. I don't know. I'm curious to what this 8-team schedule is going to look like going forward because as of right now, it's 8 teams. I think Michigan, not Michigan, I'm sorry. Georgia picked up somebody on their schedule recently that basically confirmed to everybody that we're going to stay 8 for a while.
Yeah, until Papa Sankey delivers the note that we're moving to 9 games, we're staying at 8. And he seemed pretty adamant on the idea that they're not interested in moving to 9 unless it makes a lot of sense, unless the college football powers and selection committees are going to take into account strength of schedule in their selection process. They're not going to move to 9 because it doesn't benefit the SEC to move to 9 if strength of schedule is not a consideration.
Yeah, I think it's, what is it? This is 2030. Georgia's got 4 teams locked up for non-con with Clemson and Ohio State on top of that and Georgia Tech. To me, if they're doing that, then they ain't nobody planning on playing any type of anything more than 8 games for a while. So they've got Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia Tech, and North Carolina A&T.
Goodness gracious. That is a like, I don't care that it's North Carolina A&T, but the other 3 non-conference matchups that Georgia has, you cannot say that they're ducking anybody because they scheduled like 3 basic powers right now.
John, 2027, Georgia's got Florida State, Louisville, and Georgia Tech. Of course, Georgia Tech's every year, but they've got a tough one.
Yeah.
So I think it was them. It may have been Tennessee as well. Somebody else. I know that people have been adding stuff to their schedule for like the next couple of years, and it looks like we ain't going to no 9. Somebody's got an idea we ain't going to 9.
There you go. So get Nebraska, get Oklahoma State back on the schedule, and then you can have your other 2 cupcakes, and we're good to go. The earliest that this could happen, that Jim Nagy's idea could happen, would be 2029, unless we start buying out games and those programs start buying out games, because Oklahoma's got 3 non-conference games on the schedule each year between now and 2028. Now, there's room for Oklahoma State in some of those years, room for Nebraska in some of those years, but Oklahoma does have Nebraska on the schedule for 2029 and 2030. So all you'd have to do is really add Oklahoma State and you're good to go. So what do you think? Would you like to have both? None? One or the other? Let us know on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Who needs to have a breakout from the coaching ranks at the University of Oklahoma? Let's discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. My wife and I, we've been trying to save and trying to figure out exactly where we were spending our money the most. And we found out, hey, on fast food, trying to, take the kids around, get them to different activities, different sports practices and things like that. We were spending a little bit too much on fast food. So now we're trying to figure out, okay, can we pack lunches or pack snacks to go with us on the way to their practices? Or is it something that we still have to do that, but maybe manage a little bit better where we're spending our money for fast food? So go check out Monarch Money. It can give you all kinds of insight into your spending, help you save a little bit more, and track and plan goals. So use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year over at monarchmoney.com. Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. I almost said every single year, but I mean, definitely do it every year, but make sure it's every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Shout out to all the everydayers. We appreciate you all showing up in the YouTube chat, hitting us up on the social media accounts as well at Locked On Sooners, wherever you like to do your social media stuff. So Jay, you were asking this question before we started recording. Which coach needs to have a breakout season in 2025? And I'm going to give the floor to you on this one first. Who needs to break out in your mind?
Yeah, when you look at the way last season went, there's a few coaches that need some good luck and good fortune. And to be honest, the coach that needs to break out the most, unfortunately, is Emmett Jones. And I say that because the way last year went with all the injuries, him having to play a bunch of young players, you were wondering just how ready a lot of these guys were. Now, granted, there was way more things happening in the environment to cause these issues, but right now, fans are not at the highest of high when it comes to EJ, and especially with recruiting in 2026, things are kind of weird. Trying to remind everybody, though, that your recruits for the 2026 season really don't have that big of an impact until 2028 when they're redshirt freshmen and true sophomores. So we're kind of, putting a lot of carts before the horse. We've got 3 years before we actually really be thinking about these kids, but I digress. Last season, and then you having the exodus you had, EJ now has to go back into the well and show us that his development is still there with these players. Granted, I think that he's going to be fine. I think that we'll see Zion Kearney really be the player that pops. It shows heavy development for him because he's been able to show with transfers. He can pick the right transfers and got the good ideas and bring them in, and they do well. But what does he have to show for himself on a player that he recruited in and he basically developed as a freshman? He didn't really have anybody yet And now I think that a big year from Zion Kearney will give him that, because Jaden Gibson was his. He ain't healthy. So yeah, we don't, at least we don't know if he's healthy or not. He looks it, but we have to wait and see he hits the field. We won't count our eggs before their chickens before they hatch. We got to see one of these players pop for him. And the question is going to be, can it be Zion Kearney or even Elijah Thomas, or even go down the list of other wide receivers he's recruited? Somebody's got to pop to help him out. I think that that's the coach probably the most.
Yeah, it looked like things were heading in a really strong direction after that 2023 season, right? And then everybody got hurt, banged up, nobody could stay on the field, and you didn't see enough development out of the true freshman class that had Kearney and Ivan Carrion, Zion Reagans, and KJ Daniels. You just didn't see anybody really develop much throughout the year. Still really, really difficult circumstances for everybody involved on that offense. The offensive line was not as good as it needed to be. The quarterback wasn't as good as it needed to be. You could barely run the ball. And that was going to make it really, really difficult for those true freshman wide receivers to stand out. But you would have expected maybe with somebody to find some opportunities, because no disrespect to JJ Hester or Brennan Thompson, but they just weren't it, man. They just didn't do enough for you. But they were just true freshmen. Give it time, develop. It's a developmental game. So we say it all the time here on the show. So I'll be curious to see how those guys look in year 2 now. And everybody's praising Zion Kearney right now. You can see some of the tools. If you go back and watch some of his work last year, you can see that there's something to work with there, and there's something to be excited about. Now it's a matter of putting it on the field and seeing that develop. If they can have that bounce back year, then I think everybody will feel a little bit more encouraged about the direction of Oklahoma football, because right now it's been kind of rough. The other position that's been kind of rough at it's tight end. And Joe Jon Finley has struggled on the recruiting trail for whatever reason, has had a hard time landing blue chip tight ends at Oklahoma. Now, depending on where you look, Tyler Ruxer is a blue chip tight end. I think he had a big jump in the On3 Rivals update. So that, to me, that's a big addition. But then you got to see him and Trine Washington come to fruition. And it may not be this year, but if they can get something productive out of the tight end position this year, even if it's the transfer guys, then I think it'll be a little bit encouraging. I know, again, last year was not the best circumstances for anybody, but he did find a good tight end in Bauer Sharp, at least somebody that could have been better, I think, given a situation where he wasn't the number one option in the passing game like he was.
Yeah, I'm going to continue to scream that from the top of the mountain, that in the hilltop or wherever, the ant hill that I'm on. It doesn't matter. I'm going to scream it. I do believe that Bauer Sharp will be really good for this team this year if he was not your number one option. And that's kind of how it is. He'll be at LSU. He'll be their second option at tight end. And I think he's going to be a really good contributor. He's going to be one that's going to go out there and he's going to put up some decent numbers that's needed. He's going to put enough numbers up to be considerable. He's very athletic. And if you can get him in the proper space, dude, he could be nasty. But at the same time, one of the problems you run into is you don't want him running all the plays running through him. That's to me where the struggle really hits the hardest.
Yeah. So you go back to Braden Willis in 2022, and that's a dude that sings Joe Jon Finley's praises.
Yeah, he really does.
And he had a breakout year that 2022 season. So, and it got him drafted. I mean, let's not sleep on that. Braden Willis was a guy that was kind of a rotational guy, sat for the most part behind, Jeremiah Hall. There were some thoughts that maybe Mikey Henderson might end up taking his job at one point, or at least taking the H-back role at one point. And then Braden Willis emerges and he's the tight end 1 in 2022 and has a huge year. He has like 500 yards and half a dozen touchdowns or something like that, and has a great year for Oklahoma. And now he's on a San Francisco 49ers team that knows how to use the tight ends.
Yep.
And somebody that could go and thrive with the Niners. So listen, I think Joe Jon Finley has had a little bit of bad luck, like EJ has, with the injuries to Caden Helms and Caden McIntyre. Now, Caden Helms is healthy. Brent Venables is singing his praises. If we start to see Caden Helms produce on the field, that could potentially change the narrative surrounding Oklahoma and the tight end position, and Oklahoma and Joe Jon Finley.
Yeah. And I the bounce back will be big for him if he can get this to happen. I think that will probably be the one that will shatter the earth if you got a good bounce back at the tight end spot, and you saw some dudes show up. I'm still telling you, I'm still very high on Trinae Washington, and I think, especially at his size, he's already like 240 as a true freshman. It's freaking huge. I think that he can be something I think he can contribute like crazy as a true freshman this year. Even if you don't, I mean, BV has been hyping Caden Helms, and we think that he could pop off potentially. You know, as long as he's healthy, he should be able to do it. Kay McIntyre, similarly. But I think Trinae Washington might be the one that helps Joe Jon win a little bit more of graces from the fan base.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because even if it's not this year for Trinae Washington, but we see him have a strong season in 2026 as a true sophomore, I think that would show, okay, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's looking at. He just needed some of these guys to stay healthy. And I think we'd feel a little bit better about it if Caden Helms had been producing or playing each of the last 2 years, but he hasn't been able to. But that's a guy that, again, was a 4-star prospect coming out of high school. And if he's ready to take that step this year, I think it'll go a long way to Oklahoma recruiting the tight end position across the country. But again, they got a good one in Tyler Ruxer. They got another good one in who's the kid out of Frisco that I'm blanking on?
You're talking about Ryder Mix?
Yes, thank you, Ryder Mix. The long committed to Oklahoma Ryder Mix tight end. So that's 2 really good tight ends that Oklahoma's got committed in 2026 that, again, changing narratives. Interesting happenings over the weekend as Michigan scheduled an overseas game. How might that impact Oklahoma, and would you? Coming up on Locked On Sooners.
We've all been there logging in on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes into play. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to the showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Like me, I told you, I went to the NBA Finals. I got to see the Pacers and the Thunder in Indianapolis while I was in town because it was last minute. And I checked Game Time, and boom, you had some great deals. The zone deals were amazing. Got the best seats in the section for you. And from there, when you're talking about concerts, the price you see is the price you pay. No hidden fees. And so you don't have to worry about what's happening if plans changes. And Game Time guarantee has your back with cancellation protection and more if something happens with your plan. So take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use the code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. But again, create an account. Redeem the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Michigan is going to play week 1 against Western Michigan in Deutschland, Germany in 2026.
9. Why would you do that? Look, the fact that Western Michigan is less than less than an hour away from Ann Arbor, why in the heck would you do that to yourselves? No, that to me was probably the worst decision they could have possibly made, because it leads on to the whole point of this entire topic coming in. Oklahoma comes to town the next week. How it's going to be, first off, you're going to be thrown off from the travel. It's going to be just weird to play. If Michigan was playing against a Clemson, a Louisville, maybe a Syracuse, totally makes sense for you to do something like that. But playing a team that's up the street around the corner, not only is that a disservice to your fan base, it's a disservice to college football. Nobody wants to watch that. You should destroy them. Like, what are we doing here?
It's crazy, man. The whole international game, like Kansas State, Iowa State playing in Dublin, Ireland in week 0 is just nuts, man. I get why the NFL is doing it. They're trying to broaden their markets and broaden their brand. College football is a uniquely American thing. And I'm not an ethnocentrist. I'm not like America first kind of a thing. It's what makes college football so special and so different than the NFL, something that it took me a little while to come around on, is the pageantry around it. It's the tailgating situations ahead of time. It's the passion behind the fans in the stands. Are you going to have some Michigan fans there? Yeah, you're going to have a lot of fans that are just football fans in the stands. And I will grant this. European fans are more passionate, generally speaking, about sports, at least their sports teams, than American fans, except for at the collegiate level. Like you watch like Premier League football or Bundesliga soccer, you watch the WWE go international or UFC, and the energy in the arenas and in the stadiums, it completely trumps anything in the professional ranks in North America.
Yeah.
But not in college.
No.
And so not allowing your fans to see your week one game, because what does their stadium hold? Like 100,000 fans? 100,000 fans are not making the trip over there. And so you have a lot of fans that aren't going to get to see Michigan week one. And that is crummy. And I'm sure it's a big money play that somebody's paying them a bunch of money to move that game over there. But it's just like, why do that to yourselves?
It takes away from the essence of college football, man.
Yeah.
This even leads to my issue with the way the playoffs are. And you'll hear me screaming from my anthill or from the rooftops of Mount Everest. Even though Mount Everest doesn't have a roof, but I'm going to put a roof there specifically so I can stand on it and yell at all y'all. Just like MJ said, the roof is a ceiling. And I'm going to go out there and I'm going to scream this. I want more games on campuses.
Yeah.
The team that wins and has the better outcome throughout the season going into the postseason, has a better record, has done what they're supposed to do. Their fans deserve to be rewarded with home games. Play them bad boys on a campus, make it easy for people to get to them. And guess what? If you keep doing it that way, the ticket prices are going to be so much cheaper. And that's a good thing. Home games that are cheaper in price are so much better of a thing for fans because now the game's more affordable. Now everybody gets to experience and be a part of it. That is what you're going for. The TV contracts are going to be hella crazy because everybody's going to be watching it. But physically being there, it's going to be cheaper because now it's going to be cold depending on where you're at, right? If it's cold for like Penn State, like it was at Ohio State or Indiana or something, it's going to be cold when you get there. So fans are going to be like, I don't know if I really want to. But those that are willing to endure said weather, they get to go and it's going to be they get to say, I went to a playoff game at home. That's who deserves it. This going to bowl sites, I want those bowl sites to mean something else now. I'm kind of tired of us kind of quote unquote watering those down for the most part. I want more games at home. So John, you're going to hear me say this over and over. Fans, y'all going to hear me say this over and over. I'm not going to stop it. Told you, I'm on the rooftop of Mount Everest that I'm building so that I can scream this from the top of it. We need more home games in the playoffs. I think it'd be more fun that way.
Well, this is worse than a neutral site game to me going overseas because neither fan base can easily get there without spending thousands on air travel and quite a bit on hotels, food, transportation, all that. Like this really prices out your student section for both teams. It prices out the average Joe from middle America, the upper, North or upper Midwest in Michigan. This is only really going to allow your elites to travel. And I feel like I can speak for most of college football fan bases when I say we don't want that. We don't want more box suites in our stadiums. We don't want more corporate identity added to the game. We want this to be about the fans and about the fan bases. So, there are 2 neutral site games that make sense. There's OU Texas, and there's the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. That's it. And again, this is worse than a neutral site game. This is a no site game. This is like, you might as well be playing it on the moon because of how difficult it's going to be for 99% of your fan base to actually make it to this game. So I'm out on this. Jay, I think you would say the same thing, that we're completely out on the idea of OU playing an international game.
Yeah, 100%. I am literally no, zero interest in going overseas for Oklahoma. And I mean, I understand wanting to quote unquote grow the game. Nah, we ain't there. Look, NFL Europe have failed after a while. That to me told me everything I needed to know about the opportunity of us doing that. And I enjoyed NFL Europe. I was a Scottish Claymores fan. I knew that team. The Rhine Fire was dope, but it just did not work because it's not a sport that's global. Now, granted, you are getting more global players playing it because they're leveraging athleticism, but that ain't it. Nah, I'm good. I don't want us to play a game overseas. I'm Gucci on that. I want more home and home series. Yeah. Give the fans, let's reward the fans who are typically broke college students. Let's reward them with some very entertaining setups. Let's go with that.
Yeah. Or not even if they're broke college students, they're guys that are, pounding away 5 days a week. They're working hard jobs, and then they got to drop $2,000 on tickets to come to your games, or however much more on season tickets to even have a spot at your games. Like, you're doing your fans a disservice here by moving this game. The NFL does it, and fans hate it. They hate giving up home games for an international game. The only team that, to me, it can kind of make sense to play an international game, that's the Dallas Cowboys playing in Mexico City, because they have a legit fan base in Mexico City. Like, not just like some fans, like they have a ton of fans there. And so unless there was like a college program, maybe like a USC, or, like that one might make sense to play south of the border in Mexico City, but nobody else, man. College football is uniquely segmented and uniquely tribal. Like, we are local fans rooting for our local team. It's regionally based. How many people in Germany are going to care about Michigan outside of the Air Force bases? That's about it.
Yeah.
Now, if you're doing this as like some glorified USO tour to support the troops overseas, then I'll take back everything I just said, because shout out to the troops. Appreciate you and all your service. But this to me just feels more like a cash grab by Michigan than anything.
Yeah, I'm not here for it.
And that's going to do it. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. We didn't even get to, Jay, the fact that Michigan's going to be dealing with jet lag that week coming back to play Oklahoma. Now, here's the little – I'll just say this before we get out of here. Germany is 6 hours ahead. OU Michigan would likely be a part of Big Noon kickoff. So it would be around 5 p.m. kickoff time in Germany if they haven't gotten over the jet lag. So there's that. Could be a little bit different timing-wise or feeling-wise for the Michigan Wolverines. Anyway, all that being said, thank you so much for being here. Subscribing to the show. Hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Hit the notification bell. Hit the like button. Share it with a friend, a family member. Let them know that you listen to Locked On Sooners every single day, and they should too. Excuse me, choking. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his work, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. You can follow me at John 9 Williams. You can check out my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. Boomer.
Sooner. John over here choking like crazy because he loves it.
I'm sorry. I'm just so irritated at the idea of Michigan going overseas to play a football game.